We need
She's firing shots right at the beginning.
You know, she's even saying that chances are we probably even need those. You know those mechanical stair thingies that the old people use to go up the level.
Yeah.
They sit there and then they just go.
That's us right now.
That's us right now.
Clearly.
So
Clearly.
that and medication for glaucoma, cataracts. You know, high blood.
Okay.
No, you know why I'm saying that. When you say I need vitamins, I'm just like, because my mom takes supplements like iron tablets and stuff. So that's just the mental image that I got, and I'm like, no, I'm not that old yet.
No, but you don't need to be old to take those things. You could you can take them anytime. You can take vitamin B tablets. They help you to they prevent flu, you know. And guys, and here's a thing that I'm so grateful for, and I touch wood when it comes to this. I haven't had a flu, of course, any type of flu since lockdown. I haven't caught a flu. I haven't had flu. Yeah, I haven't had flu. 2020, 2021, I haven't had flu. Like, it's crazy. Wow. Yeah, fine.
So even like those like change of season mini somethings.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe
I'm sure there's a hay fever there somewhere that you had at some point. Yeah, something.
What's good, manga? Hey, when
what an entrance.
A hay fever, not just a little one. Yeah, man. Guys, welcome to another episode, another session of our podcast sessions today. Hope everyone had a good day, productive one. Nonetheless, yeah, it was really chilled for me. But guys, I'm gonna get to it, right? I think today's topic, we just need to be as dynamic as we want to be, you know, be as open-minded as everybody wants to be honest, have your take, say what you gotta say. This is a podcast and it's not radio, so we pretty much can say whatever we want to within the guidelines of respect, though, of course. So, but yeah. So today's topic, guys, we're going to talk about, and this is good because at least, you know, it covers a lot of spiritual things that we'll probably talk about. But of course, you know, we know what we're here for. So today's topic, guys, we're going to talk, I want everyone's take, and this is what I wrote down. I said, spiritual dating or spiritual dating. So that would be, or let me word it in another way, church dating versus secular dating. Okay? I think, look, I talk about this because I grew up in the church. You know, my mom's a pastor. So, of course, I've got my own 2 cents about the whole topic. So, whenever anybody is ready, let's start. Let's get to it. So, give me your thoughts and what's your take on the difference between church dating and secular dating. And if you want to be dynamic here, it doesn't necessarily have to be you finding somebody within the church, but somebody, we talk about spiritual values, etc. So yeah, whenever we're ready. Ding, 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 ding. What's that?
Do you want to anchor it by giving your experience, since you're the one who grew up in the church? Like, I think it's best to just start off with your story, and then the rest of us will just chime in on our own experiences on the church and relationships within that sort of setting.
Wow, thanks, Martin. I will do that. Such a person. That's pretty good. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll put it this way. Yes, I did grow up in the church. Didn't have many girlfriends in the church. Okay. However, being in the church, it did kind of give me a overview or a kind of a spec of what type of person I want to be with in terms of spiritual connection. Okay. Based on how I was raised. And of course, mind you, yes, some of the women that I've dated before have had spiritual values. However, those along the way have seemed to be a bit of a contradiction in some way, because it's not necessarily acted upon. It's more said than it is acted upon. So in my take, it has been a situation where it's no different from finding somebody who hasn't been raised in the church or doesn't necessarily align with spiritual values. So for me, in my take, in this instance, I don't think it's the same. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think it's different from either one. And it also depends on the person too. You get what I'm saying? So it also depends on the person, because there is a lot of times where, especially when you're vetting somebody or looking for somebody, their spiritual texts or spiritual beliefs don't necessarily align with what they present out there in terms of image. It's completely different. But I'll dig deep into that as we go.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I needed that context, and
Okay, cool.
there's a lot to there's a lot to unpack, and I'll also give my take on it.
Cool.
But I think I'll intro it by responding to what you're saying, and I think also because it's also been my experience as well that there seems to be a duality between the people who go to church and the way they live their lives, especially in the dating world, and that goes for both men and women. The first thing is this: church, especially going way back, like, and I don't mean to expose you or put you on the spot, Fonzo, here, but going way back to your time, because you're older than me for sure. Church going way back then, and sometimes even to this day, covered a lot of spirituality, morality, relationship with God. This is how you conduct yourself as a Christian, morally speaking, and this is how you conduct yourself in the presence of other people when it comes to loving thy neighbor. We all know the scripture, but church didn't cover how to conduct yourself within a relationship. Unless, of course, we were talking marital counseling. It's like a lot of churches to this day still only, like, their relationship section only talks about relationships as in marriage, two people who are married. But you don't have too many churches who are talking about how young people, teenagers, as well as, of course, young adults should conduct themselves in the dating sphere. Hence, you're going to have that duality of people know how to live spiritually. They know that they need to pray. They know that they need to give tithes at church if you believe in such. They know that they need to read their Bible, and they know how to behave in situations that question or that challenge their morality. But they don't know how to behave relationally. They don't know how to relate that Bible to how they are living within their relational life. Hence, you've got two different images over here, and people are completely fine with it. It's normal. Like, we can dribble girls on the one hand and we can pray to Jesus on the other. That's just the way it goes, right? Because the church has not equipped us with the tools we need to handle these questions. And so I've experienced the same thing where, yeah, even to this day, I'm still wrestling with, especially being in the world and listening to some of the great speakers or the great teachers of our time. Like, we speak about the manosphere, or we speak about your Jordan Petersons, and he will talk about how to conduct yourself in a relationship. And to this day, I'm still wrestling how much of that is biblical, how much of that is godly, and how much of that isn't, how much of that is fleshy. So there is a big duality to it. But give them grace, because it's not all their fault. Sometimes it's really the church does not cover that part of teaching and informing people how to be Christians within the confines of a relationship.
I was about to say, there seems to be, from what you said, there seems to be a disconnect somewhere when it comes to that. And from the age, like you said, it connects more to people who go to the marriage counseling, etc. But what about the grassroots level? You know what I mean? Because look, here's and maybe it'd be a complete topic all on its own, but young people date each other, boyfriend, girlfriend, and it's there in church. Because of course you can't fight your biology when it comes to that. You're gonna like somebody, you're gonna have a crush on somebody. You know what I mean? So where does where does the church necessarily touch on that to say, look, because I didn't have it. I was at youth every freaking Friday, but I didn't get
Right.
that. They just told us
Yeah.
to stay away from the girls. That's all they did.
Yeah, and I was about to say, I was about to say, did your youth leader tell you to stay away from the girls? They do that
They
thing
told
where they put
what?
the boys
Yeah,
on the one hand and the girls on the other, right?
yeah. They told us to run the other direction, pretty much, without saying that.
That's what
So
it is.
that was the disconnect there. Anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
True. And
Interesting.
before somebody else goes into it, you're revealing something pertinent that the church should be responding to. One of the biggest quotes that I just love so much, like I really just love thinking about this, is if you have a church within a community, but the church does not address issues of the community, then it's not a church at all, right? You're not playing any role. You're just coming over there, going, doing spiritual blabber, but you're not solving any community issues, right? And so the church is not only within the community to solve, issues like poverty or people's, spiritual thirst or spiritual hunger, but there is a question about relationships for young people, for older people. How do they conduct themselves? What is the biblical way? What is the wise way to go about it? And the church needs to respond to that calling.
I think what I was gonna say when it comes to that is it's very difficult in the world that we live in now to also put dating itself into one box, right? It's become such a layered thing that it's so hard to actually say this section of society should be informing dating, or that section, or that section, or that section, because it's so different now. Like, an intention behind dating has also changed. Like, there are some people who, okay, I'm bored, I just want to, I want to date somebody, or I just want to be with somebody because I'm bored. I need someone to entertain me during the weekends. Whereas someone else's intention is, I want to date someone because I see a future with someone, I want to build a structure, I want to build a home, I want to get married, all those things. So also intention plays a big role in the type of lessons that you can teach people. And I think nowadays the church is becoming increasingly challenged when it comes to dating, because it's very difficult to know how much you can step into people's dating desires and reasons for dating, because you also want to respect them and why they want to do things. As much as in the church or in Christianity, whatever it may be, we may want to talk about dating for the intention of getting married. We also know that it's hard to preach that nowadays, because not everyone wants to get married, not everyone wants to date for that purpose, right? So I think the position of the church is becoming more and more difficult as time goes on, right? So it's like it's all on the people who are, look, are you attending church because you just want to make yourself feel better after being at Conca yesterday? Or are you attending church because you actually want to get a message and you want to form a connection with someone? So that's why I say intention is such an important thing in this whole equation, right? If you have a certain intention towards something, then it's going to make sense. But if you don't have an intention, if you're just doing something for the sake of doing it, then nothing is going to make sense to you. And no matter what someone teaches you, it's not going to go in, because you just want to do something casually, right? So yeah, it's intense, it's tough. It's hard to put these things in a box.
True.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. So when Alfred initially told me about this topic, I approached it way differently in my mind. When I thought of church dating versus circular dating, the verses made me think of the differences. And then initially in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's easy. Church people date like this, and circular people date like this. But the more I began to think about it, it actually became a lot deeper. So in essence, I arrived at 2 points. The first point being that there are certain parts of, or there are certain things that are present within a circular relationship that are needed in order for it to be a success or for it to work, that also need to be present in a church relationship. So, for example, communication. Whether you pray to God or to Allah or whatever, if you're in a relationship and you don't communicate, your relationship won't work, right? So the second thing was having a clear understanding of what is expected of me from my partner, and having a clear understanding of what my partner having a clear understanding of what I expect of them. You know, if that is not present in either relationship, you'll end up boyfriending or husbanding in the wrong way, or in a way that is not satisfactory to your partner. And in essence, the relationship won't work. So that is independent of who you worship, or if you choose to believe in someone higher. Then the second point that I arrived at was, as far as differences go as well, there are certain things whereby on the surface, they might look like differences, but when you go deeper, it's the same thing, right? So, for example, in my first answer to myself, whereby I was like, okay, that's easy. Christian couples do this, and secular couples do that. You can take going to church, for example, in order to feed their spirit, or because that's the way they do spirituality. And then you look at a secular couple that chooses to, let's say, meditate or read books about doing spirituality differently. The act might be different, but the end goal is the same. They're both feeding their spirits, you know, or they both, the end goal is to be spiritual, you know. And then the second one was Christian couples may not engage in sexual activity until marriage. And then I said, no, wait a minute, but there's secular couples who also don't, or who also subscribe to abstinence. So it brought me to a place where I was like, okay, but are there differences, or is it just like on the surface where things appear to be different, but in the end, it's the same thing. That's where my conflict was.
Yeah.
In other words, it's no different to find or look outside of church as compared to inside, or
yeah. We might call it different. Like I'm saying, on the surface it might look different. The activities that Christian couples engage in versus secular couples, but when you peel back that initial top layer, it's the same thing, you know. So it becomes, the question is there a difference? That's what I ended up asking myself, is there a difference when you go beyond that first layer of the way things appear at surface level.
Mm-hmm. Got you. Manga?
Yeah, on my side, I think there probably used to be a difference, but not anymore, because especially like with Christianity, over time, Christianity has kind of like, in a way, succumbed to the way that the world operates, the secular world, in the sense that you find people are asking pastors and religious leaders questions that the Bible doesn't necessarily have answers to, because they're dealing with circumstances that were not around back then. So it's like, for example, okay, so let's say if you want to date from a religious perspective, you'll have questions along the lines of, what do you do if you started dating a woman and she's now is asking for girlfriend allowance? How are you going to go to your pastor and say, what does the Bible say about that? Now the Bible will say it's important for your man to take care of his woman. Fine. But in that context, the woman he's referring to is his wife, not some chick he met last month. So you then ask yourself, how are you supposed to apply Christian dating in this particular context? And this is also now where you're starting to see, like with teenagers, for example, like Martin was saying just now, that how there isn't that clear instructions from a grassroots level, like from the ground up. So you find teenagers are kind of like making up the rules on the way. So let's say like if you're like 18, 19, somewhere there, your friends, you go out to parties, you're in varsity, there's drinking, there's smoking, there's all sorts of stuff, right? Now, you then ask, okay, am I not allowed to, what's the rule? Are we not allowed to drink at all? Or is it just you can drink, but don't get drunk? And then, like, there's other layers that go on from there. So the way I see it, it's almost like secular dating and Christian dating specifically. It's almost like they're kind of like 50-50 with each other. Whereas I think like a religion more like Islam, for example, it's more clear cut from the expectations, the principles and the values and the behaviors in terms of like the code of conduct, how you supposed to carry yourself. Because a couple of months ago, I was talking to some chick on Instagram about like how Islam's actually date, and they actually have like their own like Bible that says women from the ground up, this is what you're supposed to learn how to do. They teach you all this stuff, how to communicate with your man, how to relate with him, all that sort of stuff, and vice versa for the man. So that when you get to the end goal of marriage, everything pretty much works properly because both people have had the grassroots training, I guess you could say. Whereas for us, like for Christians, there isn't like a training manual for how to go about things. So that's the funny thing that's weird is that even if you're secular dater, right? You say, no, I don't date by the church's rules. At the end of the day, you're still going to get married in the church. So how can you say that? You see what I'm saying? So we're in a very confusing moment right now.
Just one thing, Manga, like as I
Yeah.
said, like what if the end goal is not marriage though? Because like every second, third person nowadays is like, my end goal ain't marriage. I'm just dating Jay, So like what's the manual for that kind of person? You know what I'm saying?
But it depends on, is that person from a secular perspective or a Christian perspective? Because then Christians would say that, when you date, you must put the Lord first. And the Lord values a union between man and woman to get married. So a religious leader would tell you that that doesn't apply to, or the doctrine doesn't apply to your practices. So if you're going to practice that, then it's not considered or in alignment with Christianity. That's probably what they would say.
Mm.
But
And
go for it,
yeah.
Martin. Go for it.
All right. And very true, Banga. When you come to the secular side of things or the world side of things, the world pretty much has its own playbook on how to go about that. It's like if you feel like yeah, like go crazy. If you feel like doing it, go crazy. Do what you got to do. If you feel them, you feel them. If you don't feel them, ghost them. You know how it is, right? This is just how it goes. So the Christian community is it is different in that the emphasis, especially even on scripture, is very much on marriage. It's relationshiping in order to marry. However, at the same time, I've said it before, there is a cultural gap. And thankfully, some churches are addressing it, but there's a cultural gap, which Bo refers to, that says, hey, listen, what if I'm not looking to marry the first person that I'm going to meet? Like what if I'm not even sure that I want to get married, period? But maybe in order for me to get to the point of marriage and being sure that I want to get married, I need to actually go out and date. I need to actually go out and experience these things. To which I would say, as a believer of church, as a believer of Christ, as a Christian, dating is okay. But here's where we start to experience some friction if you're a part of the Christian community. It's, what does dating look like? What does it constitute? And how does that relate to what happens in the Bible or what the Bible stands for, right? So I've had a conversation on either side of the race spectrum between white people and black people. So we're all black in the room, so we know that parents, especially older black parents, dating for a teenager, their teenager, is like, no, heck no, you're not doing any of that stuff. You can't, don't even get involved. I'm not even going to talk to you about that one. It's not a conversation that you and I are about to have. You get what I'm saying? So that's the black parent. We all know that. We've all,
Not until you're 50.
maybe, yeah, right.
Exactly.
Not until you're, not until you're 50 and out of my house and in your own house. You do that in your own house. Right? So, so that's the black parent. We all know that. But I've spoken to white parents, being a teacher, talking to white parents about, hey, what is your perspective on dating? I've seen your girl child hanging around some boys, and you were there with them. And how does dating look like for you? So this lady, older woman, white woman, says, hey, I've heard your rhetoric on dating and the fears within the black community around the topic of dating, especially to parents of girl children or female children. They fear pregnancy, teenage pregnancy, all of that stuff. We understand it. But in our society or in our white community, dating is basically the children getting to know each other within the confines of the familial relationship, right? In other words, boy and girl don't date separate from their mom and dad, like we often do within the black community, where you're 18 years old and your mother doesn't know your boyfriend or girlfriend, right? They do it within the family, right? Which means that everything that is done, whether they go out to movies, they go out to drinking, or they come over to the house, they're doing it in front of the parents. Hence, that minimizes the risk of anything shady going on. Why? Because they're not doing it separate from the world. They are doing it within a circle of people, right? And so I know a lot of ministers, church ministers, pastors, or church believing people who would say, you know what? If the church was to prescribe dating for young adults or even teenagers, that would be the blueprint right there. Do it within a community, because that's where you're safest. That's where you've got less chance of doing anything shady, whether it's a boy or a girl. But again, it's like, even if we're Christians, some of the things that we're doing, they will ultimately operate against the Christian faith, just off the basis of the fact that when we decide to date, we decide to do it away from the world, by ourselves, on our own wisdom, or even worse, on the wisdom of our friends who are the same age as us, who are married just like us. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm basically trying to say is, there is an argument for Christian dating, but that argument only weakens if you, as a Christian, as a black Christian, say, yes, I want to date and I want to practice my Christian beliefs at the same time, but I would like to do it away from the crowd. Because I promise you, that's not going to work.
So there's no, in other words, there's putting the child or putting those kids in that environment creates a sense of direction and guiding.
Yes, because when because when I run into something, let's just take me for example. Y'all can speak for yourself. When I run into something as a teenager, I'm not going to my mom about it. I'm not going to my grandmother. I'm not going to my father. They will kill me. You're doing what? You're dating at this age? But if it's normal to date within the confines of a community, and this is not only for the young people, but it's also for people our age as well. Like, if my mom or my dad knows what's going on, not specifically, but what's going on in my relational life, then perhaps I stand a better chance of running into an issue. Hey, he wants to have sex with me. We're not married yet. What do you think about that? Right? Simple things like that. Like, if you deal with that by yourself, oh my goodness, you're in trouble, because it's either going one way or the other. But if it's within the wisdom of a community of people who are older than you, some of them are married, then come on, you stand a better chance of being safe in that regard.
So I think we would also need to fix that or address it from a culture perspective, because the reason why it's such a taboo for me as a 16, 15-year-old girl to come to my mom and say, hey, I'm speaking to Sibusiso. The reason why that is such an abomination is because of culture. So we would also need to address that from a culture point of view. so that it's not disrespectful, and to avoid me coming back when I'm 19 and pregnant because you are not there when I try to tell you about Sibusiso. That's also something to look at. Culture.
True.
It's also part of the reason why a lot of things are different, or teenage Black kids are socialized differently from white teenage kids. Culture.
Then, can I be devil's advocate here for a bit? Then what's the point if you know your cultural values are your cultural values? Why bringing in spiritual values at the same time if it doesn't align with that principle of courting, in a sense? You know what I mean? What's the point? You have to pick one in that in one way or another. Or am I looking at it wrong?
Now, I wouldn't say you're looking at it in the wrong way, but it's been the age-old debate for the longest time, trying to balance, tradition slash culture with, religion, right? And this goes on like over and over and over. Like people try and find a balance between, okay, this is what we do at home. This is what our traditions are. This is what I've been taught by my grandfather, my mom, my grandmother, all these people. But at the same time, these are the religious teachings that we've had at home. And like, my parents have been able to balance these two sides of their personality and their way. So what stops me from balancing these two sides of myself as well, right? And I think nowadays people are finding that it's becoming harder again to try and find that balance between like tradition and culture with, some form of religion, whether it's Christianity or, Islam or whatever it may be. But people are finding it harder to balance two sides, right? And that's the thing, that, we're alluding to, that it's difficult. It's difficult, right? Martin, you've spoken about courting in the church, and in theory, brilliant, that works. But then there's so much going on nowadays that it's really difficult, right? It's really, really difficult. Having that box, that insulation would help you. But like, what if I'm not necessarily interested in the people that I see at church every day? Maybe I'm more interested in other people from school, or, people that I saw on Google, or people that I saw on Instagram, whatever it is, maybe I'm more keen to interact with those people. So now, how does the church address that? How is the church addressing social media? How is the church addressing interactions at school? How is the church addressing what we see when we do a Google search? So also a question of evolution. How is the church evolving to these things? We can create this fence of safety, but is it actually to the benefit of that person? Are we really, really, really benefiting that person by keeping that insulation, right? So, yeah, again, heavy question.
to add on to what you just said, is growing up in the church now is different from growing up in the church 30 years ago or 20 years ago. Now you've got all these groups. You've got liberals, you've got conservative people, then you have these ones who are alphabet crew people, then you've got dissected down, you've got another group of people who believe in that. At the end of the day, everybody goes back to church. But these things, or these divisions, create a plethora of different ideologies, whether they've been there already or they're just being created as we go. You get what I'm saying? It's like basic, and please, before anyone comes at me, the S word, we look at the word submission, right? And this is context to dating. Yes, I know it only pertains when you are married. Fine, great. You understand? However, the build up to that. So if I go, let's say I'm a young 19-year-old Christian young man who's looking for somebody to be with long term, how do I know that she's got the qualities be capable to be I'm not going to use submission, cooperative person. Let's use cooperative. I know Nolo hates that word, cooperative person. so that's it's just, and I'm not saying, roll over and play dead for me. I'm saying basic things, basic surface level things. How do I know that before I get to you, I give you the ring on the finger for the next 20 years or whatever the case? How do I know that I'm going to get these characteristics from you? I'm just saying.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Wait. Can I respond to that? And if I'm lucky enough, Nolo will back me 100% on this. 100%.
Go
It is
for
not,
it.
let me go for it. It is not for us as men to determine before we go into a relationship whether a woman will be submissive or not. It's for us to be the men we're supposed to be, and the submission will naturally flow out of her.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Preach.
Yeah. It'll naturally flow.
Got you. And that's in the Christian context, correct?
Yeah.
So this is spiritual
Even
context.
no,
Everywhere.
Everywhere, even in the secular, even in the
Hence,
secular context.
hence
Love
I
her, respect her.
yeah. Hence I said I don't want people to think that she must be like this. I'm just trying to understand that as a build-up. Okay.
Exactly. Because another thing, I feel like I need to say this as well, because there may be people watching and young men watching who are wondering, oh my goodness, how do I figure out if she's submissive or not? How do I figure out if she's king? Just king. And you see the queen come out. Like, it's really that simple.
It's good that you actually brought that up. I was just thinking, the first thing that came to mind as you were saying that is, I forgot his name. Who is it? Megan Good's husband, the preacher. What's his name again?
Devon Franklin.
Yeah, him. I remember reading at some point that he was going through, shall we say, a very tough time at his congregation, because this is like what I was talking about, how you have that somewhat hypocritical blend between secularism and Christian dating. Is that, on Sunday he's preaching to his congregation about the holy union between man and woman. You must have God values and whatnot. Meanwhile, his own wife is out here on TV shows getting her back blown out by co-stars. Like, what is that? Our people. So that's a contradiction, and like, you are like in a leadership position, and this is like your own wife doing this. So it's like, if this contradiction is taking place from the top, how is it supposed to filter down to the bottom? And more especially like with something like that, this is like in clear violation of so-called Christian marriage. So how exactly are people supposed to how are people supposed to make sense and deal with this kind of hypocrisy? So that's something interesting I wanted to point out as you just brought this up.
Yeah. And it's funny how you say that, because you look at Pastor Ray Macaulay, right? If you look at Pastor Ray Macaulay, went through his first divorce in the early 2000s. And from there, he lost a lot of congregation members. I know, because I was in that church. I grew up in that church. And, it's surprisingly that the same individuals who have probably left the church also engaged in their own divorce issues. It's ironic. It's a double-edged sword in that context, because, you stand the whole moral high ground. I'm leaving that church because the pastor divorced. Meanwhile, a few moments later, back at HQ, you're going through your own divorce. So what you say, bro?
Hey, guys, I don't know. I think that's a hard one, because it's a little bit different when your partner is playing fictional characters, right? It doesn't necessarily represent the values of your marriage. It's more about the characters that your partner is playing, right? So it's very difficult to say their entire marriage contradicts what he's preaching in the church, because in the context of their marriage, we don't know what is going on in the actual marriage. We know what is happening in the context of the fictional characters that his wife is playing. Sharp. but we don't know what's happening in the marriage, right? So it's hard to say, I know they're not living the values of what he's preaching, all those things. Like, again, it goes back to what we're saying, that the world has changed so much that we have to bring all these factors into consideration. It's not like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, everyone's wife was an actor or, an actress, whatever it is. Like, it's now that you can have an actress wife or an actor husband or whatever it is, and things change a bit. And that's where the church must say, okay, how much can we step into what is going on in the marriage? Do you like, guys, it's hard, right? If it was a case of, yes, okay, the lady is flaunting her assets, Sports Illustrated, GQ, what, maybe, yeah, that's different. But like, I don't know, man, there's something about a fictional character which doesn't sit well with me. Like, it's a character, like it's not the actual person,
But the kissing is real, though. The kissing is
Yeah,
real.
because I was
The
about to
Bible will
support.
say the flesh is interacting with those that you're not married with.
Yeah, because another thing I was about to say in support of what Manga is saying, just to play a bit of devil's advocate, Bo, is the fact that outside of the acting, though, when she did her red carpet appearances, she was flaunting her assets. All right, she was coming out like, dressing up unlike what you would expect from the wife of a minister, right? And another thing that Christians, very super hardcore Christians, would respond to, or the way that they would respond to what you're saying is, okay, if what you're saying has merit, then why are they divorced? Why don't these types of marriages seem to last? The way that a typical marriage outside of the spotlight would last. You know what I'm saying?
Is it not more an ego thing more than an actual values thing? Because obviously your ego is going to be touched when another man is caressing your wife and like, I feel like it's more an ego thing more than like, no, I'm divorcing you because of my values. Yes, your values can play a part, but I also feel like I'm just touched because you've been all over the place with all these other men, like that's going to be the biggest contributor for me.
But doesn't every man think that way?
As you're saying now with values, right? Yeah. Especially if you are like a preacher or something. But either way, whether you're a Christian, one of the values of the marriage is monogamy. So where exactly do you draw the line in terms of what acts of contact with other people break that boundary and which ones don't? So it couldn't. So you see, like, again, like you can go back and forth with this kind of conversation in terms of, because all these boundaries, all these parameters that people want to operate in, it's such a thin line that it's almost like, is there even a line? Because again, like you're saying, this is also like part of what would make dating very difficult if you're like with anyone in the entertainment industry and you're looking to do, Christian dating at the same time, it's not just like with actresses or actors or whatever, but now what if you are a Christian dater who's like a Christian who's dating or is married to a rapper who talks about killing people and drugs and all that sorts of stuff? And it's like, how is that not a clash of value systems there, right there? Like, how can you, like, because those value systems are very different and they're at opposite ends, is it even possible to say that you can support both?
No, the church will show a blind eye, bro. The church will show a blind eye. They'll allow it to happen. Chances are. That's where the money is. That's where the church goes. They chase the money.
A rapper talking about murdering people? They'll turn a blind eye?
Wait.
Bushiri took the money, dog. He ran. So he's been. Yeah.
Can I say one thing though? Just to clarify the statement. I know we're talking about the church, but let's also be specific as to what type of churches would let that slide, because I must be very cautious in saying that not everybody goes to the same type of church And Christians are not going to appreciate us painting churches with the same paintbrush, like all of y'all are the same. They're not. I promise you.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So I withdraw my delela again. I withdraw my
I withdraw it.
But I had a question for Bo. So, and let's be hypothetical here. Let's say you met your wife, because you're a married man. You met your wife outside the church and you were in the church, right? And she happened to have a very, very wide variety of pictures on her social media. Wide variety of assorted. You could pick, screenshot, do whatever you want to do with them. Have a good time. So now, right, you are, let's say, and I'm being very hypothetical here. Maybe you, whether it be by any capacity, you're an active member in your church, right? And then, however, you really, really, really see that this person has the values that you're looking for, they align with what you're looking for, etc. But the one thing that you struggling with is the variety of pictures you see on her social media. Do you tell her to say, listen, can you not do that? Can you not do that? Or, try be a bit less, revealing in a way? Yes, go for it. If you want to post in your social media, do you, but can at least be a little bit less revealing? Because I have this on side, I've got this on my side, and of course it's for the betterment and for the benefit of a family. So what happens there? And she refuses blatantly, but still she has those Christian moral values that she supposedly has. What do you do?
Now if your girl refuses blatantly, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. Now that goes back to the topic of what kind of communication you have in your relationship. Because if I have expressed why it's bothering me and why I don't like what you're doing, and you have also expressed your views and you're like, nah, still, then you're kind of completely disregarding my feelings then, right? So I'm not necessarily saying completely change your life and completely change your lifestyle and how you do things, but like you can tone it down a bit. You can tone it down a bit, just a bit.
That's why I said less revealing. Yeah, less revealing.
Yeah, less revealing. You don't have to stop completely, because maybe that makes you happy. It gives you a better sense of, I don't know, self-esteem, whatever it is, fine. But
oh, hell no. Can I disagree with you there? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Nobody does social media for their own sense of esteem. They do it for the attention. I'll be very clear with you on that one. So continue. Go on.
Whatever it is, bro, whatever it is. But like, all I'm saying is, if you can't even respect my feelings to just tone it down a bit, then I don't see the relationship itself continuing then, because you couldn't even tone it down.
What if it's her job? What if she's a model? Sex sells in the industry.
You see, now you're contradicting what you were saying about Megan Good, because with Megan Good, it's also her job.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a contradiction there. How do you, like, what principle or like what authority do you use as a roadmap to make your decisions? Because that's how blended these things are. They're almost like, it's almost like they're like in the same pond in a way. So like, what do you do?
I want to hear Noliso's perspective as well. I want to hear her perspective. Yeah. She's been dissecting us guys here on the panel. So I want to,
okay.
She's like, military secrets. Military secrets.
So it's a struggle for me. So I just want to be clear. When you say a variety of pictures, you mean like half-naked pictures on Instagram or something?
Of the wider variety, yes. It could be.
So I always struggle when I see women who have these Christian values and post pictures like that, because for me the Bible also speaks about the value of your body, being the temple, or something to that effect. So for you to put it out to the public like that, it's a clash. It's a clash. It should clash with your values, your Christian values, being okay with just putting your goods out there on the gram. So never mind her not wanting to take them down because of your request, because of whatever position you hold in the church and blah blah blah. Let's look at her personal relationship with God, or her. I'm questioning her Christianity because of her conduct.
Yeah, sorry. No, I got you.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I would honestly question her as an individual, her Christianity. It doesn't balance, doesn't add up for me. If you're going to be posting naked pictures on the gram or on social media, and then you covered up in church on Sunday, like, yeah.
God forgives.
Yeah, can I also say two things that are very pertinent. A wise man once told me that if you consistently find yourself having to get with people who you have to change something fundamental about, you at some point you're going to have to sit down and ask yourself, what keeps leading you to these people whom fundamental values have to change whenever you get there, right? Like, so it's not just the girl's Christianity, but brother, you need to look at yourself too, because you keep attracting or being attracted to these types of women whom you have to have serious conversations about. Hey, you got to change this and that about. You get what I'm saying? So that's one end of the spectrum. On the other end, let's assume that best case scenario, you are with someone and it's all been good intentions. They're Christian, and there is a fundamental issue on the social media side, or maybe even on another side as well. Again, I go back to it not being up to the man to determine if she will submit or not. You really just have to be yourself. The problem with us, and I think this is a men's problem, I probably suffer from it as well, is we come in day one or within less than however many months without even investing into it, and we put a request or a demand on the person that she would be willing to change for somebody who has been with her in the long run, for somebody who has basically invested into the relationship that they have in the long run. We want to come in day one and make that demand. Do you really think they'll listen to you if you do that?
No.
I doubt they will. So yes, on the one hand, there is take immediate action, communicate, but then I guess, again, to answer Manga's question and Bo's question, how do you actually do it? Sometimes it's a matter of time. It's a matter of investment. Have you proven yourself to be the type of man that she would willingly withdraw, away from certain things? Because sometimes it's love that gets you to do those things. It's not, the idea of someone or the idea of how long you could be together. It's actually love. So I don't know what you got to say, Bo.
No. It's not even. I'm not even disagreeing with you at all. It's just a question that I want to throw to everybody. And all I want to say is, like, if you really, really value somebody, and you see a long-term future with someone, what actually stops you from changing something that you think is fundamental about you, or something that you can see is problematic about yourself? What stops you from changing that problematic thing, if you really, really value that person?
I think I have an answer to that.
It would be...
I'll play devil's advocate to stir the pot. The person will tell you, you knew this is who I was when you first met me. Why did you change me?
I've heard that too. I've heard that too, by the way.
Oh my God. Lord Jesus.
Why did you say yes when you knew that I'm this type of person, only to come in here and try and change me? Yeah. It's a valid question.
Because then now you
it is a valid
accused
question.
of being manipulative.
Yeah.
That you said you were okay to commit now, hoping that because we've been together for so long, you're gonna now make a request to get me to change my ways. Why didn't you say it from the beginning? But at the same time, as Martin said, if you say it early, I just met you last week. Who are you to be coming and calling the shots?
But you know, one thing is I say about that, and you're absolutely right, Manga. I agree with you there. Way to add on, it is also ego. Like it's the ego side of things. Men generally have a thing of fearing of losing in some way. You know, she could look like, you know, swimsuit model for days, and you'd be like, oh man, I made a pass on that, but you actually did yourself a favor in the long run in some way. You know what I mean? Because it's what 5 minutes of fun compared to a lifetime of headaches. Pick one at the end of the day. Pick a struggle. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it also goes back to the dudes to say, guys, you know, you need to think straight and go through your, especially when it comes to what you're looking for. If you're just looking to do your thing, then let it be so. Be honest about it. Be upfront about it. You know what I mean? Don't beat around the bush and then impose the values that you've grown up with and the values that you like to impose on others. And then you're getting the difference, you're getting a different outcome from it. And then you're just like, oh no, I'm stuck now. Be very, very frank and honest and direct from the beginning about what you're looking for. And if it doesn't align with you and it's going to be a problem, run.
Yeah.
Run. Go the other direction. You've lost nothing. You know what I mean? You've actually maybe even by some sense of the word dodged a bullet. You feel me? So yeah, so that's my view on that one.
I think also we're forgetting that like a person may tick all the boxes right at the beginning, but there are some things that only present themselves once you're in it.
After the ring.
Like
after the ring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are certain things that only come up and you're like, oh, okay. I didn't see this a year ago or 2 years ago. Now you're
You
this
were so
person.
charming in the beginning.
You know? Exactly. There we go. The audition phase, the trial phase, right? And then now that you're done auditioning, you start to let go of all the other layers, right?
Yeah.
The person's going to be like, okay, this layer that you've revealed to me today, I don't know. I don't know about this layer, right?
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to my question, like when your person is like, Mara, this layer, you know, you can't use that same thing like, yeah, you got me as I am, because I didn't get you like this. I didn't get you like this, you know? So that's where you must also be like, okay, sorry, no, maybe I've blindsided you at this point. Maybe I need to just alter this particular thing, you know, like that's all I'm saying. Like there are certain things that only come up later on, you know, where you should be like, I freaked this person out. Let me calm down a bit with this particular thing, and that's it.
I've heard from many. I've heard from many friends who've kind of lived with girlfriends before marriage, and like, yo, you'll see the truth when you start living with somebody, you know. You know, when you're apart, it's fine. You know, there's at least some traction going. But when you actually live with somebody, that's a different take on its own. That's where the real challenges come in, because, you know, for us, it's a simple pet hate to ladies, you know, rightfully so, that we leave the toilet seats open, you know. So that's my thing. So it starts with things like that, little pet hates. And then they start to accumulate because now it becomes an issue, a topic of discussion, which ends up in probably a fight. I don't know. But yeah, it starts with small things like that. If they're not really cleared up from the beginning, they will snowball in some way.
For me, it's about whatever it is that you're asking me to change, like whatever it is that I'm requesting that you change. How big is it? Is it a deal breaker? Because also it doesn't make sense for me to continue with you for 2 years, hoping that I'll change you after 2 years, because I don't have that guarantee that you'll stop doing whatever it is that I want you to stop doing. So I feel like from the onset, if it's something that is unbearable, and you're clear with me that you aren't prepared to change that, where are we going? I don't think a relationship should start to begin with on that basis. That's just how I feel.
You know one thing. Go on.
Yeah, it's about how is that thing a deal breaker? If it's a deal breaker, the relationship won't take off.
You know, one thing
at all.
I think one thing ladies need to understand about guys, ne? don't try to change them. Most guys don't want to be changed. You know what I mean? Some guys, and that's the harsh reality, is that most guys don't feel the need. They don't want to, they want to change in their own terms, not because somebody's telling them to do it. You get what I'm saying? And I would only believe that it works vice versa. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's one of those things when we go into a relationship and we look to change certain things. There's small, minute things. I get it. There are small, certain things that a person will change when you're with them. Like maybe a dress sense, for example, or maybe your style of clothing, or maybe your, you know, your selection in fine wines. I don't know. It varies. But when you try to change somebody from the core inside, it's a very, very, very harsh, or not harsh, sorry, it's a very hard task. You know what I mean? Especially when somebody is really, really stuck and committed to the way they are. You understand? Because they have the control at that time, you know? So,
yeah.
But then now,
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
yeah. So I was gonna say on that point, again, it goes back to yeah. So you're saying that if it's something in the core. So my thing is, as a person, are you not attracted to the package, the full package? Let me tell you what I mean. If there's something about that person's core that bothers you, or that you'd like them to change, like how did you arrive at the point where you were attracted to the person? Yeah, hence I'm saying, are you not attracted to the package? So for example, if someone is a nice person, but let's say their dress sense bothers me, I think that would hinder somewhat, or cause a bit of fuzziness as far as the attraction goes. Yeah, that's how I feel. If you have half naked pictures on the gram, in my process of deciding whether or not I like you, I take those things into consideration as well.
on an entry level, yes. On an entry level, yes. It's the package.
So it's not I like you, but no, either I like you or I don't. And when I arrive at that decision, when I arrive at that decision, I've taken those half naked pictures into consideration as well.
True. Absolutely. That's why we have online dating apps like Tinder. It's more the package. They present to you what is there. Whatever else comes out after, that's entirely up to what you guys conversate about, or what's being spoken of, or it's between the two parties. You know what I mean? But on an entry level, yes, it's not like I like you, but you'll find that out once you start seeing certain things about that person, you know. But yeah, I can't say any more from what, yeah.
No, I was add.
Okay, go on, Bo.
You wanna go? Okay. No, I was just honestly going to add to what Nolo said. Just regarding the whole package is like, again, going back to certain things coming up only later on, right? Like maybe once you start living together, you realize that this person doesn't like sleeping in the dark, right? And you prefer to sleep in the dark, you know? And you have no idea why they don't like sleeping in the dark until they actually tell you that, hey, look, I have a childhood trauma where, you know, my mom tried to strangle me in the dark, you know, and now I can't sleep in the dark, you know. And those are the type of things, going back to what Nolo is saying, is if you like the full package and you're attracted to the full package, you will now understand, okay, fine, maybe we can't sleep in the dark anymore. Let's just find a compromise. Maybe we can dim the lights or something, whatever it may be. But like, you know, that's when you decide, like, is this going to be a deal breaker or not? How much do I love this person? You know, do I not love them enough to give up sleeping in the dark? You know, like it's things like that, you know? So like, I totally get what Nolo is saying, that like, there are certain things where you must understand that, like, look, this is a trauma for this person and I can't change that. You know, maybe I can help them go to therapy, you know, maybe we can work on it, but I can't break up with the person because of that trauma that they had, you know? Yeah.
Oh, good point.
All right. But what about this?
Yeah.
Bo, Sorry, Martin, go on. I'll put my 2 cents in after you. Go in.
Oh, all right, thanks. I think another thing I was also going to say, I was hopping between two different thoughts. The one I'll just mention briefly is whenever because this is where you started actually, Fonzo, is when, pastors and ministers of the gospel engage in relations that are inappropriate and, in fact, misrepresenting the Christian community. One of the things that will set you free the most, especially if you're in the church, especially if you're outside of the church, is there is a difference between Christianity and Christians, right? Christians, human beings. Christianity, this is what you would call a religion, a lifestyle, a relationship with God. So I often say to people who are disappointed or who leave churches because their ministers or whoever they looked up to was found being human, that they are still human. Don't put them on the platform of God on your life and think that they are completely blameless. They're completely human. Yeah, right. Thanks. Thanks, bro. Right. There's a difference, right? So I think if you carry that mindset whenever you go to church, that'll save your soul. Stuff will happen and you won't even be hurt by it because you're like, oh, they're human. Okay, fine. So anyway, on the other end, there's also the thought of, in looking for retrospective partners, or I don't even know if I'm using the word correctly. When we're looking for partners, basically new partners, there's also the question of whether you're a man or a woman. Have you cultivated yourself enough? And I'm not talking about anything material in this case, but I'm really talking about everything internally, because one of the reasons I find why we settle or we find ourselves in those scenarios where we're asking somebody to get rid of something fundamental is because we rushed into the relationship out of the desperation or out of the lust or the desire to be in a relationship, right? We didn't cultivate that time alone by ourselves, where we could get to a point where we said, hey, a relationship would be great, but I'm okay, I'm content by myself. In other words, I would rather be alone than to have to deal with something toxic. Because the more time you spend by yourself and the more time you spend working on yourself, and again, I'm not talking deliberately about anything physical. I'm not talking about money or resources or career standing. I'm talking about your mental health and your heart health. The more time you spend working on that, cultivating that, the stronger your decision-making skills get when it comes to, finding the type of person to be attracted to. And I feel like the more you work on your mental health as well, the more you, I would say, even increase the number of people or the demographic of people who would be attracted to you, right? Sorry if this offends anybody, but you're no longer attracting broken people because you yourself are not a broken person, right? You're also attracting whole people because you yourself are a whole person, right?
How dare you, Martin? How dare you? How dare you call me broke? How dare you?
Not calling you broken. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's not direct for everybody ultimately. In fact, again, one of the secrets that I'm leaving out to this thing is the more you work on being a whole person, the more broken people you will attract, because where do the sick people go? You get what I'm saying? Right? Where do the people who are broken, what do they look for? They look for somebody who is whole. But again, you would be able to put yourself in a better position to vet, in your own words, the right people from the wrongs.
All right, cool, great.
So which is it? Is it like attracts like, or is it opposites attract?
It's actually, it feels like, not even feels like, but even from my own experience, a lot of the time it feels like opposites attract opposites. And I'm just talking in the regard of, where a person is with regards to their emotional health. It really feels like the people who are healed and whole and grown are the ones that attract people who are a little bit broken, or people who are working towards wholeness, or the best way I like to put it is the people who know how to love the best attract those people who are struggling the most with love, because hey, that's what I'm looking for, right? So like can attract like, but especially speaking about it from a Christian perspective, and this is how the Christians would see it, the Bible, this is how the Bible would put it. If two whole people are in the same room, that's a waste of resources, because who are they ministering to? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, who's helping who? Nobody's helping anybody. But if a whole person is in the room with a person who is working towards wholeness, then at least we can help each other, right? It's like, yeah, that's how the Christian faith sees it. So, you make of that what you will.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Actually, closing statements. We'll just wrap it up from here because of time. 30 seconds each one. Final statements. I'll start with Manga, then we'll go all the way around. 30 seconds each. What say you, Manga?
I don't even have a closing statement because we've said so many things. So I don't even know how to like sum up everything that I've said. But just a quick first thing I was just say like to what was discussed now is I think like as you do better for yourself, I think in terms of like attracts like or opposites attract, I say it's both because you get such things as people, you get on both sides. Somebody wants somebody with similarities, but you'll also find somebody who has the things that they are lacking within themselves, like energy vampires are such a thing. Narcissists, manipulators, they find people who have things that they want to take from them. So it's just a matter of as you get better for yourself, the onus is on you to be better at discernment to know who is in alignment with you and who's just there to take.
In other words, don't use John 15 on your Instagram and then post booty pics. That's a problem. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Wow.
No. Any last thoughts?
No, I'm actually still just marinating what Martin said.
Okay.
Because for the longest time I felt like attracts like. What you put out into the universe is what you get back. If I'm attracting broken people, it's because I'm also broken, or it's like a mirror. In that there's something I need to look at it within me. But he suggested something new. So I think for me, the question that I'm left with is, okay, so how do you then, okay, but then Manga answered it in terms of discernment. I was going to say, how do you then get your desired person? Because fine, in as much as I may be a counselor attracting patients, what if I don't want a patient? So that's the question I'm left with.
Yeah.
What if I don't want to attract patients, because patients are high maintenance emotionally? What if I don't want to be in a dynamic where I'm having to fix someone or help build them up or help them get out of their dark hole? What if I want to be in a relationship whereby we're on the same level mentally, but we're kind of like ping-ponging off each other energy-wise? That's where I'm at.
So it's my turn. So I'll obviously half respond to what Nolo is asking, because it's a very important question, as well as give my own final thoughts to the discussion. Nolo, if I'm honest, this is the same question I'm wrestling with the most. Because again, not to blow my own horn over here, but I've invested a lot of time in trying to be whole, in trying to be healthy, in trying to be strong, while of course handling all of the physical stuff that comes with it, making sure my money's right, making sure my finances are right, everything, all that different stuff. And one of the things that I've found, to be a reality of my life, even to this day, even to this moment that I'm speaking to you, is it's very, very difficult to find or to even attract a person who is either on the same level as me or pushing towards the same level as me. not even just career-wise or money-wise, because that's easy. You can find a lot of people who are like that. But I'm talking about with regards to thinking in a whole healthy manner. Uh, finding somebody who matches my energy spiritually, like we both share the same zeal and fire for our Christian faith and for representing God on the earth. It's been the most difficult thing. Most of what I attract or what I find myself in the same room as is patience, right? It's people who are they're good, to their credit. That's why I'm there, but we're not really on the same level. We don't really love God the same way. We don't really share the same level of mental health. Like there are some things I have to talk them out of, right? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect compared to them, but I'm just saying that as far as the hunger to grow and to consistently be better is concerned, we are completely unmatched. And so I've found myself in situations where I've said, hey, I can see there's a bit of a misalignment over here, but let me stay. And staying was one of the best experiences for the person who I stayed with. Why? Because they got to experience what it was like to be with a person who is loving and with a person who is not here with any ulterior motive, right? The patient got to experience what it was like to be with a counselor, if I could put it that way. But the counselor was working at a disadvantage because the counselor has needs too, right? The
Exactly.
the therapist needs therapy too, right? And so when you can be strong for a person, but a person can't be strong for you, that's one of the most difficult places to be in. And so I'm still wrestling with it to this day. And
It's learning.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, it's either that someone is out there, but maybe the more you work your way to being a whole person is the more you work your way out of the 98% of people who aren't whole, and you work your way into the 1 or 2% of people who are whole and are, as a result, much harder to find, right? So maybe think about it like that. That maybe kind of clears up your question as to how
Fair
you
enough.
find them. But it's 2%, basically 2%, 2%.
Okay.
And then as for my final thoughts on the discussion, again, I honestly say, and this is coming from the fact that I'm a Christian, but it also comes from the fact that I have, without bias, looked at some of the perils of dating within the Christian community, outside of the Christian community. And like, I've really, really analyzed it. And all I can walk away with is empathy from the fact that whether you're a Christian or you're not, the reality is we're all humans. And some of the things that the church is criticized for the most are again, some of these things are coming from people who are experiencing them as well, but they somehow expect the church to be different from them. And I completely understand that. I am completely with it. But again, you're dealing with human. And the reality is some of the things that we struggle with as humans and some of the reasons why we struggle in relationships. For example, I've spoken about one of the biggest reasons why we struggle in relationships in the present day being our familial experiences, our childhood experiences. The church has that too, right? The pastor, they have that too, right? And so again, my take on it is, in defense of the church, the sooner we get out of making the church our savior, making Christians our savior. Yes, we should demand more from them morally. We should demand more from them as far as the community is concerned. But the sooner we also reconcile that desire for them to do more with the fact that they are human and therefore they are capable of doing wrong just like us, the better the church, finds, I guess, a better image within the world, even in the world of dating. The more cynicism or the less cynicism we have labeled towards the church, when people actually figure out, wait a minute, the people behind suits, they're humans too. They struggle with the same things we struggle with too. And so once I get out of that mentality, all I can be left with is empathy. All I can be left with is understanding and even a greater love for these people, because I'm like, okay, they're human just like me. So I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, obviously, but yeah, that's my thoughts in defense of the church, hashtag.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of you guys. I think one other really important thing to remember is also that healing is a consistent process. I don't think you ever fully finish healing. You can be 90 years old, 95, 100, and you won't be done healing, you know? And I think one thing that is important is it's unfair to think that just because you're at a certain point in your healing that the other person is inconveniencing you because they're not at a similar point, you know. You, if anything, should be humble enough to say, I was at a similar point to you at some stage, and I should actually be helping you get to a point that I'm at. Just because I'm content doesn't mean that I should expect you to be content. You know, you're not content yet, so let's walk this journey together. And I must not fool myself and think that I'm done with my own healing. You know, my contentment doesn't mean I'm done. You know, I'm just content, but I still have work to do with myself. And that's what needs to be done, right? And then regarding the role of the church, as we've been saying throughout our conversation, the world has evolved so much that it's hard, man. It's hard. And it's not just the Christian church. I think, you know, we've got to look at lots of different types of church, you know, the Jewish religion, the Islam religion. There's a lot that needs to be modified, adapted, you know, so much going on. You know, we've got the TikToks, the Instagrams, the Googles, whatever it is, you know, and because of all these changes, I think any religious institution must recognize that it can no longer be the alpha and omega. As much as we talk about alpha and omega, it's hard as a religious institution to be the alpha and omega nowadays. You have to recognize, as Martin was saying, that we are just humans. We are flesh and blood. So we can give you teachings. We can try and guide you. We can maybe try and push you in the right direction, but we cannot do everything. You know, we're not your mother, father, government, Jesus, God, Allah, everything all at once. We are just human beings with flesh and blood. We're just going to help you on your journey, and that's all we can do. And that's what we need to admit as the church or any religious institution. Yeah.
Fact.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm just saying that definitely comes from a humility perspective, and it's so important to start there. You know, take away having to say I am a Christian, I am this, I am that. It starts from basic human being behavior or human being decision making. You know, and as well, again, I also agree with what Bo said, with what Martin said, one and the same, because we are living in a new age. I can guarantee you now there are congregant members in the LGBTQ community, fair enough. You know what I mean? And the church is not discarding them because the church is about love. So I think adapting to that, it should be like that across the board in all aspects, and reviewed and said, how do we view things in today's society that's evolving so much? How do we adapt ourselves? How do we get more congregants to come back to the church, if that's the way to put it, based on societal changes, what's been normalized, what's not normalized, things like that. There's a variety of things, hence why there's been so many divisions. And now when you're in these divisions, you must adapt to these divisions, even though you're not part of it. It's craziness. But at the end of the day, it comes back to simple humanity, humility. You know what I mean? Taking yourself above, or not putting yourself above another person based on your status or your religious belief. You get what I'm saying? So that's my take on the whole topic. Yeah. But guys, wow, I could have gone on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for the Women's Day.
Representing.
You know, thank you for joining us today. And guys, gentlemen, thank you for making time. And I hope you had a well-rested week and look for a good week ahead, or what's remaining of it. And yeah, I hope to see everybody soon, and take care of yourselves, all right? Bless.
All right.
Bless.
Bye,
Bless.
guys.